All right, I'm showing 10:10 a.m., so I'll go ahead and get started. And like I said, if anyone joins in late, you can actually back it up, or I'll post a recording of this. But anyway, starting off here with our infrared satellite view, and boy, what a difference 24 hours makes, huh? This time yesterday, it was just becoming a hurricane. Now we have a very, very pronounced eye, very strong uh, thunderstorm activity surrounding the eye wall, really good outflow. In fact, I have the radar overlaid on this image, and you can actually see the first of the rain bands approaching the Louisiana coast now, which produce sustained winds of 40 miles per hour at an oil platform here. I'm not sure how high up off the ground or off the water that sensor is, but nevertheless, I'm probably already producing gusts of tropical storm force in this first band here. Though the winds associated with that will probably come down a little bit as it comes on shore. Switching over to visible satellite view here, and that's what we're looking like on the visible satellite now that the sun's up. Um, like I said, just very formidable hurricane compared to where we were 24 hours ago. For a little weather history, this is now a high-end Category 3, 125 miles per hour. A little more intensification is possible because we still have another 12 to 18 hours before landfall. If this were to make landfall in the state of Louisiana as a Category 4 hurricane, I believe this would be the first Category 4 landfall in the state of Louisiana since Hurricane Betsy in 1965. Mom might remember that one. The eye of that went over New Orleans. It basically went up the Mississippi River over New Orleans and over Baton Rouge. And then it would be only the fourth time on record. The others are the Chenier Caminada hurricane in 1893, I believe, and then the last island hurricane of 1856. So, pretty rare event to get a Category 4 landfall in Louisiana, even with as many hurricanes as the state sees. So, moving on to the forecast here, not a whole lot has changed. Still looking right around the Louisiana-Texas border area, maybe just a bit to the east of there, maybe a little closer to Cameron or so. Pretty much the entire western half of the state in that very high probability of tropical storm force winds. Um, if I switch over to the hurricane wind probabilities right here, the highest hurricane wind probabilities are definitely again towards southwest Louisiana. Lafayette's kind of right on the edge of the higher probabilities. So my thinking based on the current forecast is still probably not sustained hurricane force winds in Lafayette, but gusts are definitely possible with that. And I'll have some of the higher resolution model guidance that has some of that wind gust forecast in there that I can pull up here in a moment. And then just to pull up your good old fashioned cone product right here, the M is major hurricane category 3 plus. So just showing where it has that making landfall. Again, it's probably right between Cameron and the Louisiana-Texas border, right there. And then moving inland. Again, the good news with this is it's not going to be like a Harvey type situation where it just sits over one spot and drops feet of rain. From this, it'll be, you know, 7 a.m. Thursday up around Fort Polk, 7 a.m. Friday, we'll be up in Arkansas. So it'll get out of there pretty quickly. Then looking at onset of winds, right here I use this most likely product. I wish there was a way I could zoom this in, but I can't. Um, we're looking at the tropical storm force winds really arriving on the coast probably later this afternoon. The worst conditions probably getting to Lafayette late tonight. And again, I'll pull up the models. Let's just go to the models now to get a better look at that. So going all the way back to this is the 3 kilometer NAM model. It's just one of the high resolution models we have here. And this is plotting sea level pressure and 10-meter wind speed. This is in knots, so again, add about 5 to 10 to get to the miles per hour here. So if we go forward in time with this, sorry, the animation is going a little slow here. You can see the highest winds are pretty confined to near the center, but these tropical storm force winds, which is over 35 knots, does extend out pretty much to the Lafayette area there. One thing to notice too is initially, so the time on here, this is 7 p.m. tonight. The strongest winds are still along the coast, and they don't really start spreading inland towards the Lafayette area until 6Z, which is 1 a.m. Central Time. Um, so it'll probably be that not until the winds start turning more out of the southeast or south till they become stronger in Lafayette, which could be as late as after midnight, even 3 or 4 in the morning, that they start to pick up there. And again, with these models, it's hard, I have found sometimes for these models to pick up the absolute highest winds in a hurricane, so they could actually be a little bit stronger than what you see here. Probably not dramatically so, but with me seeing sustained winds in Lafayette of around 30 knots or so, tropical storm force winds definitely look pretty possible. And like I said, with some gusts closer to hurricane force. And speaking of gusts, I have to go to another website for that because that one doesn't have the wind gust product. So here it is. Again, I don't know why this is going a little slow here for me this morning. But looking at some of these gusts, see here is 54. Again, this is in knots. 54 knots would translate to about 65 miles per hour, which I think is the highest it gets in this particular model for Lafayette. So looking at wind gusts in the order of 60 to 70 miles per hour possible, which is probably a little more than what Lafayette had for Rita. It's probably getting closer to Hurricane Lily territory. Pretty impressively, it has 70-knot wind gusts getting up to Natchitoches, which is hurricane force winds up there. Then looking back over towards Houston, I think this is going to be far enough east that Houston isn't going to get too much from it. In fact, I mean, this barely gets the wind gust up to 30 knots, which isn't even tropical storm force. 30 knots to 35 miles per hour. Poor Lake Charles, though, you can see what it's getting there. There's a 94 right there, so I mean, it's going to be rocking in Lake Charles tonight. In terms of timing, see again here, whenever you see the Zulu time, to get Central Time, just subtract 5. So this right here, I'm looking at 2 in the morning. Here's midnight. So it looks like between midnight and daybreak is probably when you'll be getting the worst conditions. It seems like these things always come ashore at night, and this looks like no exception to that. And then going over to one other model here, the High Resolution Rapid Refresh, or the HRRR model. Looking at that, it paints a pretty similar picture of getting the sustained winds to near tropical storm force. And again, I usually find that when it comes to sustained winds and hurricanes, these high-res models might be a little bit on the lower side sometimes. So that's what we're looking like there. And then it has a wind gust product as well I have pulled up. And looking at that, the highest we get, there's a 59, almost 60 knots, and they're at 70 miles an hour and just shy of hurricane force. So again, going off the high resolution model guidance, again, something comparable to Rita or even possibly closer to Hurricane Lily looks pretty possible for Lafayette, if you remember what those were like there. It is good that it seems like the track forecast is looking pretty good for, again, here it is, even on this high resolution model between Cameron, which is right where the cursor is, and then the mouth of the Sabine River. It looks like that's going to be our spot right there. So the worst should stay over towards Lake Charles. It doesn't look like it's going to be the end of the world for Lafayette or anything. But it'll be enough to blow over some trees, blow over some power lines, stuff like that. Some modest damage from it. And then looking over towards Baton Rouge as well, we do get some gusts close to tropical storm force in the Baton Rouge area. Tropical storm force starts at 35 knots. There's a 37. This is 5 in the morning here. So early in the morning in Baton Rouge, perhaps you could get some gusts of tropical storm force, but not looking at anything too crazy. Certainly not as bad as even Lafayette. And then Houston over again on the west side, not looking at a whole lot of wind there. This model is noticing has wind gusts to 104 knots, which is about 115, 120 miles per hour for Lake Charles there. So Lake Charles is going to get absolutely punched in the face by this. I wanted to see now, I pulled up those text products yesterday. I was going to see if they've updated it yet. It was, it's still 4:14 a.m. And they were saying for Lafayette, 30 to 40 miles per hour with gusts to 60 miles per hour. Given that the intensity has gone up a bit since this advisory, my guess is they'll probably nudge that upwards for Lafayette Parish, probably saying something like 35 to 45, gusts to 65, or maybe even gusts to 70 on there. So like I said, you're getting close to hurricane force, and that's enough to cause some damage, for sure. That's nothing to play around with. Again, not something where we're talking like, massive destruction, but enough to cause some damage. And then just to show a point, if I go just west of Lafayette, go over into Acadia Parish here, which is under a hurricane warning, not a tropical storm warning. See, they're showing the gust of 65 there, potentially for higher. So, like I said, it could come up a little bit in the forecast for Lafayette. I'll have to see what that does later. And then you might remember these maps from yesterday where I was showing the wind threat. Again, Lafayette is right on that edge there where, in fact, this almost perfectly straddles, the city proper of Lafayette between where they're saying potential for high-end tropical storm force, which is the orange, and potential for hurricane force right there. And then, the much higher winds are going to be in this pink area. These aren't, a perfect, what we call in the business a deterministic forecast, which is just straight up what's the wind speed. This does take into account some uncertainty with the size of the storm and all the more probabilistic approach. So think of this as like what you should prepare for. And so based on this, I'm still saying for Lafayette, you're going to want to prepare for low-end hurricane force winds, as I've been saying for a while. Baton Rouge could get some, on the higher end, could get some decent tropical storm force gusts, worst case scenario there. And then, of course, like I said, the real destructive winds over in the Lake Charles area. We like to think of this, this being a Weather Service product, we like to think about this as what we'll refer to sometimes as reasonable worst case scenario, kind of what you should prepare for. A question I just got is, when could we expect this to fall off for Lafayette? So just going back to these models again, looking at kind of when things start to die down, it looks like things should start settling down tomorrow afternoon sometimes. This is 1 p.m. here. Pretty well to the north, still some gusty conditions in Lafayette. One thing I can pull up is the simulated radar for this. That can help us out a lot sometimes. So it looks like those outer rain bands really starting to come ashore this evening. This is 6 p.m. And then as we go forward in time, and this is one concern I'm going to have here. Notice this big trailing feeder band tomorrow morning. You can get some significant rainfall rates from some of these. And see, notice it even pushes over towards Baton Rouge and New Orleans too. But it looks like it really doesn't start moving out of the area, these feeder bands, till almost 6 p.m. tomorrow before you really start winding down. And in fact, even some more scattered activity even into Friday. But I think that the heavier wind and rain should start to wind down tomorrow afternoon, so Thursday afternoon. Though the strongest winds are still looking between midnight and daybreak, with, like I said, it kind of lingering through, some of it lingering through the day tomorrow. And then finally, just to look at one other model for this, because we should never take one model and consider it the gospel. If I can find what I'm looking for here. Here we go. Simulated reflectivity. So there it is on radar. And this looks pretty similar, with the bands really starting to come ashore late this afternoon, 5, 6 o'clock. Getting the worst conditions between midnight and daybreak. This right here, this is 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and then going forward. Still those feeder bands persisting into tomorrow morning for both Lafayette and Baton Rouge. And so this is 7 p.m. Thursday. Right here, still some of those bands there. I think, again, the worst will probably start to clear out by Thursday afternoon, but you'll probably have some lingering rain for a while, which leads me, I forgot, I would be remiss if I did not pull up the rainfall forecast. So going to the latest on here, this is actually the overnight rainfall. I don't think this will change much with the latest advisory that came out, however. Lafayette's kind of right on that boundary of the 4 to 6 inches or the 2 to 4. Again, think of this as like area total There's going to be pockets higher than that within there. The maximum they're showing is pushing a foot of rain right here, but this larger orange area is the 6 to 10, the yellow is the 4 to 6. So for Lafayette, I'm thinking maybe 3 to 6 inches of rain. 3 honestly sounds a little bit low for a tropical system, just to be honest. And it's moving along at a good pace, but it's not screaming fast. So I would probably think closer to 6, just based on personal experience. Closer to 6, maybe some spots getting 8 or more if you get one of those really heavy bands that just trains over you, which is really hard to forecast exactly where something like that could happen. But the important thing is I'm not looking at this being some prolific rainmaker, like Hurricane Harvey or Tropical Storm Allison. But, any hurricane is going to pretty easily produce 6+ inches of rain to the east of where it makes landfall. So that's probably what we're looking like for rainfall. And then just to wrap up, going back to these hazards here, storm surge won't be a problem for Lafayette, but they're actually now talking very near where the eye makes landfall. So Cameron, coastal Cameron Parish, maybe even western Vermilion Parish, they actually are now saying there could be up to 20 feet of surge there, which is going to be absolutely devastating down there in Cameron and Vermilion parishes. With the surge actually potentially reaching pretty far inland up into Lake Charles by just going up the Calcasieu River. Lafayette should be fine. Houston should be fine for surge. There's that flooding rain threat again, pretty similar to what I just mentioned. And then tornadoes are always going to be a threat. Might actually be a bigger threat over towards the Baton Rouge and New Orleans areas. That, in my experience, that tends to be something more in the periphery of the storm than kind of close into it. So don't be surprised if you start hearing like tornado watches going out later today. That's typically a threat for these hurricanes. Usually you're not talking major tornadoes with that, though there are some exceptions. The hurricane, the unpronounceable Isaias, that was a few months ago or whenever that was, actually produced like an F3 tornado up in New Jersey when it was going up the East Coast. But that tends to be the exception, not the rule with that. So that's kind of all I had put together here. I guess one last thing is you can actually see it coming on radar now. And it looks like there's nothing out here, but remember, this is just out of range of the radar. That's why you don't see anything out here, because obviously I showed you infrared satellite, and you can see that there is a lot more out here, so don't be fooled by that. It's just out of the range of the Lake Charles radar. In fact, right here we're looking over 200 miles away from the radar, where the beam height is 44,000 feet. If you look on my screen down here, it shows the altitude. So there's that first band. So if there are any questions that or anything I didn't get to, you can ask me in the little chat there, or just message me directly. That's about all I had put together. I'll just put this radar in motion here. I'll be working again 2 p.m. to 11 p.m., but I should be available via text or, I probably could even take a quick phone call because our weather has been pretty quiet up here, and probably be the case again for us. But like I said, always just text me or message me if you have any questions. NHC will do a intermediate advisory again at 1 p.m. With those intermediate advisories that are at 1 and 7 a.m. and p.m., note that they don't ever adjust the forecast with those. They're only going to update the intensity and position. Though actually, with it being so close to land, they could even, do if they have a reason to change the intensity, they could even do it more frequently than that. They could do a special advisory. But they only update the forecast at 10 a.m., 4 p.m., 10 p.m., and 4 a.m. That's the only time. But at this point, the forecast is not going to move much. I mean, we're looking, again, this spot between the mouth of the Sabine River and Cameron, Louisiana is probably looking like our landfall spot at this point, putting the worst effects, pretty much Lake Charles, maybe into Jeff Davis Parish here, tapering off towards the east. So I didn't get any questions in here, so I guess I'll go ahead and end the stream. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and I could actually do another one of these tomorrow morning, just to see the progress of where we are, because it'll probably be ongoing tomorrow morning. So maybe I'll get up and do one of these. But feel free to send me any of your videos or pictures or something like that overnight. Bonus points if you want to set up a little webcam or something like that, and because I'll probably be up late tracking it tonight. So anyway, thanks for joining.